In this video, we're going to instantiate the class we made in the last video. Check it out. Okay, now we've got a widget class that we created in the last video, which has 4 fields. It's got an int, a string, and 2 doubles. We have all of our constructors. We have our getters and setters, which allow us to access those fields after we've done some sort of pretend validation. And we have a display method that allows us to see the state of any widgets that we create. This is a recipe, okay? It's a recipe for an object. It is not yet an object. It's a definition, okay? It's a custom data type. So now in main, we're going to begin to use the widget class by making widgets, actual objects in memory that we can manipulate. So we're going to start by building a widget with the default constructor. Okay, and the thing of note here is we must set all field values away from defaults. Okay, and I'm going to show you what this looks like, because we've got that cool little display function that we built, so I don't have to keep retyping all that code. And that's part of the power of object-oriented coding. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to declare the data type that I want to use for a variable, which happens to be widget. Okay? Now, obviously the widget is defined in my package, so it should be able to find it. This error is, oh, I don't have a semicolon, so I haven't really finished my sentence yet. And we're going to call this my widget equals new, and here we go with the constructor call, widget, but we're not going to give it any values. So the compiler runs to the widget class and says, does one of these exist? Let's go check. So it pulls it up and says, why, yes it does. So it's going to give all of these values to those fields, and I can prove that by operating on this object, on the my widget. So my widget is the object. Notice I didn't type widget. I said my widget dot, and here's everything in this class. Now some of these methods I didn't write. I inherited them from objects. See, it even says where I inherited them, okay? But I have a display widget method from the widget class that I can use. So my widget.display widget, and let's see if I got my default values. Sure enough, no name assigned, 0, 0, and 0. Okay, so obviously it is safely initialized, but not really useful yet. So let's give it some values, and I give it values by using the setters to set the values. And again, I'm using the object my widget. I'm not using the object widget because widget is not an object. In other words, this word widget, that custom data type, that's a recipe for brownies. Okay? But an actual brownie I can eat is my widget, because I have assigned it via the constructor a safe set of memory and pointed to it. Okay, this is just like the integer class. Okay, all right, so my widget dot, and I can say set anything I want. So let's set the widget name. So I can scroll on here, and yep, there it is. Set widget name. Look, it even fills it out for me. It says give it a name. So we're going to call this a deluxe widget in red. Okay, just to be goofy. All right, and let's set the rest of them. So we're going to say my widget dot set. We can set the number on hand. That's that one. And let's say we have, oh, it doesn't. Sounds good. My widget dot set. Let's set the widget cost to be about $1.57. And let's do my widget dot set. Let's find widget price, set widget price, and let's say we sell these guys for $12.99. All right, and now let's do this again to see what has happened to the object my widget. And we'll scroll this up a bit. Let's see if I can get to my, there we go. And you can see that we went from the default values to the values that we fed in through the setters. Okay, so that's pretty cool. All right, now I can even do a print statement that says, let's do system out print line, and I'm just going to put in here my widget dot get widget name. Okay, let's run it again. And notice it says deluxe widget in red. Okay, so I can pull getters and setters because they're public, and obviously it would check if I was the right person and had authorization, things like that, before it would let me execute those because I would have that validation code in there. Okay, so now we're going to build a widget with a partial constructor. Okay, and this is where we know how many we have on hand, and we know the name, but that's all we need. That's all we know. So we're going to say widget, and we'll call this new widget equals new, the command new, and we're going to call this widget, and we're going to say we know we have 33, and it's called the super glossy widget. Okay, now what's the compiler do? The compiler says, wait a minute, you called new. Let's see if it's got one that takes integer string. So it goes to widget and it says, let's see, integer string. Yep, so we're going to get this one. So I should get those two values and then I should get 0, 0. So let's immediately do a new widget dot display widget and see what we get. And sure enough, we get super glossy widget 33 and then my default zeros. Okay, so let's go ahead and set those. Okay, and I'm going to copy this, but I'm going to change this to new widget and change this to new widget and make these different values. Let's say this value cost me, oh, I don't know, $1.83. And we'll say that we sell these particular widgets for, these are expensive, $24.99. High gloss is going to cost you. All right. So we're going to want to display the widget again. And see what we get. So let's run this. And now you'll notice we see super glossy widget. This is how it was coming out of the constructor. We've added those new values, and sure enough, they report the same. Okay? And that is with a partial constructor. And now the last thing we're going to do, as you could probably guess, is we're going to build a widget with the full constructor. Okay, so we're going to say widget, we'll even call it full widget. So full widget equals new widget, and we will say we've got 64 of these guys. It is a tiny widget in green, and they cost $1, and we sell them for $14.99. And all we need to do here is full widget dot display widget, and without having to do anything else, because our initialization values are here using the full constructor, we get to see tiny widget in green, 64, $1 and $14.99. So it should be a little bit obvious that using the full constructor is always going to be the tightest when it comes to your instantiation, but we don't always have to have all of the values in order to create an object of a given data type, in this case, the widget class. Okay, you've now seen the very beginnings of object-oriented programming in Java. So now you've seen how to turn a class or a template for a custom data type into an actual object, which is pretty cool. One of the things I'd like you to do is practice this. Find something in your house that you just happen to notice, or something you're interested in, something that you might be holding, something that you might play with, whatever it is. Find something and build a class that models whatever that is. It's a really good practice. And then turn it into objects and make 2 or 3 different types of objects of that class, and just play with it. See what you can do and begin to discover how object-oriented coding can really be used as a very good modeling tool. Okay? In the next video, we're going to go a little bit deeper into constructors, because we don't need to have all of the statements in all of them that do our initialization. We can do what's called constructor chaining, and this is what you're going to do as a professional programmer. It moves all of the real heavy lifting of constructing into the full constructor. There's a couple things you need to be aware of as we do it, and we will talk about all of those things on the other side.